Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hammer Territory podcast. I am Scott Coleman, and I am joined on the show today by Carlos Collazo, a national writer for Baseball America. And believe it or not, Carlos is one of the founding fathers of this podcast. Way back in the day at Talking Chop, I mean, goodness, Carlos, we're talking like a decade at this point when
Man,
the Talking Chop podcast originated. I'm sure we have some listeners who go way back there. Have you been?
I've been good, man. A decade ago, that makes me feel quite old at this point. But always happy to hop on the pod and talk with you, Scott. Talk some Braves. So it feels good to be back. Good to be home, as it were.
That's right. A homecoming for the podcast. And if folks missed it, Baseball America recently released their top 10 prospect rankings for the Braves farm system. I will say Carlos and all the team at Baseball America do a fantastic job. Better, I mean, in my opinion, best in the game for covering the minor leagues. Scouting reports on all these players are available if you want to check it out. BaseballAmerica.com. Get a sub, support them and all the work they do. And Carlos, let's just kind of jump right into it. The state of the Braves farm system today. If I walked up to you on the street and said, "Oh my God, are you Carlos Collazo from Baseball America?" How is this farm system? How does it compare to maybe the last couple of years in terms of talent and depth? Where are the Braves at right now?
Yeah, I feel like the Brave system has kind of been fairly static for the last few years. I mean, we've ranked this system as a bottom 5 farm system each of the last 2 years. I think they're near that range, maybe slightly up. I think it's pretty safe to say they're a bottom 3rd farm system still. But they do have some things going well for them. I mean, part of the reason they've been in this range, I think they've been in this range for a solid reason. Like, they have continued to graduate prospects that have been MLB contributors. Drake Baldwin is the most recent of that. It does feel like, despite the fact that the system, since I've been doing it the last 4 or 5 years, it falls off reasonably quickly. There always seem to be productive players in the top 10 who are going to offer some assistance to the major league team, whether that's rookie of the year types with Drake Baldwin, pitchers like AJ Smith-Shawver, who you're seeing flashes from, Spencer Schwellenbach. It wasn't all that long ago that Michael Harris and Spencer Strider were produced from this farm system. So because you're consistently graduating these players who no longer count for our rankings, because the team is consistently picking in the back of the first round, and also I think too, while the Braves have been back in the international market for a few years after kind of being out of that market for a number of years because of penalties, we really haven't seen any returns from their first few international classes. I think there is some signs of hope that maybe that's changing with their most recent class. We do have a prominent member of their 2025 international class creeping into the back of this top 10. But I think when you compare this Brave system to other systems around the league, you don't have a ton of bats, which has been kind of a consistent trend for the Braves. There may be 2 hitters that we have inside the top 10. There are a lot of lower level hitters, but there is still a core of pitchers with upper minors experience, some pitchers with high upside, and Cam Caminiti, who leads the list. So I would say in general, it's probably a bottom 3rd, but you could say maybe trending up from where we've had it the past 2 years, if you want to be optimistic about it.
Yeah. It's fascinating because I think objectively, and you're obviously an objective voice and other talent evaluators are too, there is not just an abundance of talent everywhere you look, not just this year, but in recent years. But at the same time, it's almost like a running joke at this point that every summer there's someone ranked 9th on a Braves prospect list and they come up and they're awesome. I mean, Spencer Schwellenbach wasn't a total nobody. He wasn't ranked 29th on this list a year ago. But I mean, he comes up and within a couple of starts, he's competing and is one of the better pitchers in the National League down the stretch. And it's just, I think that's probably a testament to while the Braves have not done a superb job in drafting and signing international talent and getting them and having just so many prospects where it's like, wow, maybe we have to do a trade just to clear up some of this abundance of talent that we have. They also find a way seemingly every season to get 1 or 2 or 3 of these guys who really contribute and help push the team forward.
Yeah, I think the Braves have been, for the last decade plus, one of the better teams in terms of developing pitching prospects in particular, which is why this offseason is actually kind of interesting because they parted ways with longtime pitching director Paul Davis. It's still a pitching heavy system. Some of the names you mentioned as either exceeding expectations or maybe just not being super prominent, highly drafted arms. Like it's not like they're getting a Paul Skeens in the system and just saying, "Hey, go do your thing, Paul Skeens."
Right.
So I am curious, like how the pitching development will change, if it will change at all with Paul Davis no longer being in the fold. But I feel like his hand kind of guiding a lot of these arms in the last few years has been a really strong positive for the system. And there's still a lot of talent. You mentioned Spencer Schwellenbach. I'm not sure outside of Braves fandom, like how prominent J.R. Ritchie's name is, but he could easily be that sort of pitcher in the major leagues as soon as next year for me. He's got like a very wide pitch mix, great feel to command the ball. So there are still some arms who could continue to do the Braves thing of popping up and just being better than maybe people expect.
Yeah. So let's talk about J.R. Ritchie, who is number 2 on Baseball America's top 10. Uh, he's someone who had Tommy John a couple years ago and took some time to come back and have his velocity come back from that surgery, as is the case for a lot of guys. But Ritchie is someone who could absolutely see his name called up to Atlanta at some point in 26. It could even be, it's probably not crazy to even think Ritchie might make the opening day roster, depending on what transpires this offseason. Tell the folks a little bit about J.R. Ritchie and why he has a chance to be in Atlanta next summer.
Yeah, J.R. Ritchie has just really been an advanced, instinctual pitcher dating back to his high school days. He was, the Braves target high school pitchers as much as maybe anyone except the Padres around the league. He was in that 2022 draft that also netted them Owen Murphy. And at the time he was drafted, he was a 3-pitch guy, fastball, slider, changeup. All 3 of those pitches were solid average or above. And it feels like over the years, he's just developed an ability to add shapes at will. The way you hear about coaches talk about how he's able to manipulate his pitch mix, he can try and add a little bit more horizontal break to his breaking ball, and just now he's got a sweeper. At this point, I think he's got one of the bigger legitimate pitch arsenals with distinct pitch shapes of any of the players that I've written up this offseason. I've got 2 handbook chapters that I'm doing for BA. It's 6 or 7 distinct pitch types. And I think what's impressive to me about Ritchie is you mentioned the injury, how quickly his command and touch and feel just was seemingly back to normal after he returned from that injury. This past year, he was maybe the Braves' best minor league pitcher. It was 140 innings, a top 15 mark among minor league pitchers in terms of volume, a 25% strikeout rate, sub-3 ERA across 3 levels. I do think he's ready to get a big league opportunity. At this point, he looks more like a back end starter. And so that's why we have him 2 in the system. I think you can make a case that he's number 1 if you are just more prone to chasing proximity or floor. J.R. Ritchie is more big league ready now than Cam Caminiti, who we have in front of him. The questions with Ritchie are, does he have a truly wipeout plus pitch? Right now, we have him graded out with 50s and 55s across the board. I think his slider has been plus in the past. If he can add a little bit more bite to that pitch again, maybe he's got a plus offering. If he can add a little bit more velocity to the fastball, it's a fairly average fastball at this point. Says 93, 94, touches 96, 97. But I think where Ritchie's going to find his success is just by throwing the kitchen sink at hitters, showing good feel for his entire pitch mix, always keeping hitters off balance. And I think he's the type of pitcher who will be able to make the adjustments he needs to make as the league adjusts to him.
Well, you mentioned Cam Caminiti as the only name on the Baseball America top 10 list ahead of J.R. Ritchie. Caminiti, of course, first round pick 2 summers ago at this point, has the bloodlines, has the talent. I know, our listeners, when they got Caminiti in the first round, were really excited about the upside that Caminiti brings. Tell the folks about Caminiti and why he ranked as BA's number 1 Braves prospect.
Yeah, we thought he had a chance to go at least 10 spots in front of where the Braves were picking on draft day. His name was just so frequently linked to those teams that were picking in like the 10 to 15 range. He goes in the draft, actually more where we had him ranked in the early 20s. So I think he went appropriately in terms of like the selection. But it's really just a unique athlete in a left-handed pitcher. He was a 2-way player in high school. The upside was always more exciting on the mound. Now he's been focusing on pitching exclusively for the last 2 years. Had a really strong season this year after missing some time with forearm tendonitis. So his innings were a little bit more limited, but it's a 30% plus strikeout rate. It's a fastball that gets up to 97. It's easily a pitch that I could see touching 100 with frequency in the coming years. It's a pitch that when he was an amateur, it was very common to see scouts put double plus grades on that pitch. We have a 60 on it currently. It wouldn't shock me if he wound up getting a little bit more than what we have currently graded out next year, if he shows a little bit more uh, sitting velocity. But we've got him with above average pitches and above average control across the board on top of the plus fastball. I think the strides that he's made with the slider have been really promising to see. As an amateur, that breaking ball was the most inconsistent of his pitches. It was a fastball changeup dominant approach at the time. And I know the biggest skeptics of Caminiti as a high school pitcher were we're not sure if he can develop a reliable breaking ball. I think just the power that he's been able to add to that pitch is impressive. It's low 80s sweeping slider now. Maybe he is able to develop like a second slider shape with that pitch in the future. He throws hard enough that it wouldn't surprise me. But I think for Caminiti, you look at a guy who has legitimate mid-rotation number 3 upside and can maybe pitch like a number 2 on his best days. That said, he still has not pitched in the upper levels. There's still a long way to go. He's still quite young. I think now he should be ready to maybe tackle high Rome and see if he can continue missing bats. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but his fastball command is also a really impressive trait at this point. Like at his age, throwing his fastball for strikes at the clip that he did, I think just gives us it gives us a lot of confidence that he's going to be an above average strike thrower in the future.
And it sounds like with that profile, maybe it like worst case scenario, if he doesn't pan out as a starter, and there's always a ways to go. We always say pitching prospects will break your heart because they look like they are awesome and ready to roll. And then, I mean, Lord, we've seen enough of them. Like I was the biggest Touki Toussaint fan in the world.
Touki.
I was so convinced that guy, at worst, he was going to be like an awesome closer or an eighth inning guy and just never put it all together. But it sounds like Caminiti's also has a floor of potentially being an impact reliever, even if the starting rotation doesn't work out for him.
Yeah, I do think that could be a decent fallback. I mean, he just has very unique talent for a left-handed pitcher of his age. You don't often see pitchers throwing this hard, this young, with still some like physical projection remaining. I would wonder, like, if he's just going into the bullpen, what is the pitch mix? You don't often see like left-handed fastball changeup oriented relievers. So kind of monitoring that secondary development with him, the control and command of the slider and the changeup, just the impact of those pitches. Like he's missing plenty of bats with his entire mix now at the lower levels, but as he progresses, faces more advanced offensive players. I mean, the people who are most excited about Caminiti will throw around like Chris Sale's name because they both are similar low slot lefties, sweeping sliders. Like if you really want to dream on him, that's there for you to dream on him.
Yeah.
But like you said,
that's a good player to dream on. Chris Sale, not bad.
Pitching prospects are heartbreakers for sure.
Yeah. Last question on Caminiti. Do you have a feel for where he will rank in the Baseball America top 100 whenever? I know you all are working through it and figuring out a lot of prospects, I'm sure, in the mix, but ideas for where Caminiti may slot in?
Yeah, he feels like a slam dunk top 100 player in some capacity for me. I would imagine somewhere in the 40 to 80 range, so somewhere in the middle back third of the list. So the way we do our top 100 is everyone on staff kind of creates their own personal top 100. We create a composite list off that, tweak players where we think we need to, and then we solicit feedback from the industry to say like, hey, where are we wrong? Are we missing on guys? So it's kind of a collaborative effort. I probably will have him around 50 to 60. I don't think he's in the elite tier of pitching prospects right now, but that's only really because there are some guys in front of him who have done a little bit more at higher levels. I think he is in this next collection of arms that has really tantalizing upside. So I would be surprised if he wasn't somewhere in that 40 to 80 bucket personally. And I think J.R. Ritchie is also a good bet to be on our top 100 to start the year. I think there might be a little bit of a drop off after those two, but not every team in the league can say they have two top 100s. So even if you think we're a little down on the system, like the top end of this is better than the bottom of the barrel systems in the league.
There we go. So be sure to check out that list from Baseball America whenever that comes out. And we're going to take a quick break here to hear a word from our sponsors. But when we come back, we're going to talk about Didier Fuentes, who was somebody who the Braves saw up close and personal this past summer, even if it was an aggressive promotion for Didier. And then we're also going to talk about the 2025 Braves draft class and some players who made the top 10, and notably one player who was not on the top 10, More with Carlos on that in just a moment.
Hey, for all the parents out there with teens, it's more hectic now than ever.
Cash App's going to help, not hurt.
With the Cash App card, available to teens 13 to 17 with sponsorship by an eligible parent or guardian, every transaction triggers a real-time notification for you to see, empowering your teen to practice independence while giving you peace of mind by keeping track of their spending. You can also manage everything directly from your own Cash App account without having to switch between the two. With the Cash App card, you and your teen's balances receive 24/7 fraud monitoring, and if something ever feels off, you have the ability to lock their card right from your phone in just one tap. For a limited time, new Cash App customers can earn $10 if they use code FAMILY10 in their profile at sign up and send $5 to a friend within 14 days. Terms apply. Cash App is a financial services platform, not a bank. Banking services provided by Cash App's bank partner. Prepaid debit cards issued by Sutton Bank, member FDIC. Direct deposit and promotions provided by Cash App, a Block Inc. brand. Visit cash.app/legal/podcast for full disclosures.
Welcome back to the Hammer Territory podcast. I'm joined today by Baseball America's Carlos Collazo. Carlos, let's talk about Didier Fuentes. The Braves were as aggressive as it gets, pushing Didier through to Atlanta this summer. Clearly was not ready for the majors. It was almost out of sheer necessity with the lack of healthy pitching the Braves had. The Braves have been aggressive in the past. They were maybe a little too aggressive with this, but there is no shame in coming up at Didier's age and not being effective right out of the gate. What do you see for him going forward?
Yeah, I still have a lot of confidence in what Didier can be moving forward. I mean, you look at a pitcher who made the major leagues as a 20-year-old. It's very uncommon to see a pitcher as young as he is with really the amount of innings in the minors that he has making his MLB debut. So the near 14 ERA and 4 starts, it's not what you want to see, obviously, but it also doesn't really materially change like what I expect of him moving forward. I think the strengths that he has are still there. He has a really unique fastball, and I think maybe what you're seeing with him in the major leagues are like the areas that he clearly needs to continue improving on, the areas that he was not quite ready yet. His fastball is a really impressive shape. It's very flat, one of the flattest fastballs in the game in the sense that it looks like it's riding more than it actually is when it approaches you. His release is low. He sits in the mid 90s, touches 99. It is a pitch that I think can be a plus offering. Where he got into trouble with that fastball in the majors is if he's throwing that over the middle of the plate and he doesn't have the secondaries to kind of keep hitters honest, major league hitters are going to be able to do damage against that pitch. And they did. They had an 886 slugging percentage against the fastball. I think 4 of the home runs he allowed in 13 innings were against that fastball. And so his command of that pitch has to be better. He needs to continue to develop the secondaries so that hitters aren't just sitting on the fastball. But I think there's still some encouraging takeaways for Fuentes. Like, he has been an above average strike thrower in the past. I don't think he's going to be this scattershot command type player. You look at just the quality of the strikes he's thrown. I think he's still going to be a solid pitcher with back end starting potential. And again, like Caminiti, if the back end starter role doesn't work, I think he has the ability to be a middle or high leverage reliever. So definitely feels to me like a case of a guy who was just put in a position that maybe he wasn't quite ready for. And you got to see some of the developmental areas that he's still working through.
Yeah. I personally would like to see Didier get 25 starts with Gwinnett this season. And
agreed.
It's that fine. It's a balance, right? Like, some kids we've seen more and more and more in Major League Baseball. If pitchers are ready and they have the stuff, even if they don't have the traditional seasoning in the upper levels of the minors, like, call them up. I mean, why not? And then you also see that happen I think within like a start and a half with Fuentes, it was like, oh man, this poor kid is just not, let's get him out of here. We don't want to, shake his confidence and
right.
Just a summer to forget for not just Fuentes, but the entire Braves organization.
Yeah, true.
The 2025 draft class for the Braves was one that I think drew pretty good remarks from the industry. The highest ranked prospect from that 25 draft class was actually Briggs McKenzie, who came in at number 5 on the list. McKenzie, despite being in the 4th round, received the largest signing bonus in the class. Tell the folks about McKenzie. I know there were a lot of people excited when they drafted him and then were able to sign him and take him away from college.
Yeah, great fit. Just with the arm talent and the organization, a team that does as good a job with pitchers. It wouldn't shock me at all if McKenzie followed like a J.R. Ritchie and Murphy path. I feel like he has the similar sort of arm talent at the same age and just the mentality on the mound. He's gotten really impressive reviews for just his work ethic and mentality that I think will serve him well as he adjusts to pro ball. But Briggs is a guy who this spring, early on in his season in North Carolina, was getting first round chatter. He came out with a harder fastball. He came out with a much improved changeup. And I'd say as an underclassman, he had long been this player who had really impressive ability to spin the baseball. He has one of these big breaking 3,000 RPM type breaking balls. It's in like the upper 70s right now. I imagine he's going to continue to add more power to that pitch. We'll see what kind of a specific breaking ball it turns into. Right now, it's more of like a classic sweeper slider look. But I think the development of his changeup is really key. That was a pitch that he just didn't throw a ton the summer prior to his draft year, and then he showed it more in the spring. And then just hearing what it looked like for the Braves, I don't think he played in any official games yet, but just in Bridge League and in bullpen sessions with the Braves, that pitch sounds like it could be a legitimate plus offering moving forward. Still a lot of uncertainty with him because we just haven't seen him yet. I think the questions with Briggs are going to be, how much velocity is he going to develop? The fastball velocity did fade for him during the spring, and I think that's part of the reason why the Braves were able to get him in the fourth round. Mm-hmm. If he maintained the velocity he showed early in the spring, he probably doesn't get to them with that pick. Maybe someone still pays him later because it's typical to see high school players get paid over slot. But I've got a lot of confidence in Briggs. I think he can be a number 3. It's a pretty solid pitch mix currently. I think he's going to have solid control. There are some things maybe he's going to need to refine with his delivery, but nothing that's unusual or uncommon for a high school pitcher. And so I think the combination of where we had Briggs ranked before the draft and the fact that he just didn't go out and struggle to the extent that some of the other Braves prominent draftees in this class did has him kind of number 5 on this list here.
So the next player on that top 10 list is, again, Alex Lodise, who was the Braves' second-round pick from Florida State. If folks aren't super tuned in but know names in the system, they might be a little surprised to see Lodise ranked 6th and Tate Southisene, the Braves' first-round pick, not in the top 10. So, Carlos, just kind of your all's process and where you see Lodise, and then we'll talk about Southisene as well.
Yeah, for Lodise specifically, before we get into Southisene, I would say the Lodise pick was one of our favorites in the draft in terms of like the value we thought the Braves got there. We had him ranked as a back of the first round player. The Braves got him in the second round at pick 60. They only paid him $1.3 million, so it wasn't one of these situations where he went a lot later but got paid commensurate with like what we thought his talent was. So in terms of players ranked that we had pre-draft in this draft class, Lodise was the top ranked player. I was kind of surprised to see him fall as far as he did. He has some clear weaknesses that he's going to need to address. Even when he was just being one of the best hitters in college baseball last spring, he was always a very aggressive hitter. The swing rate, the chase rate, how often he expands the zone, those are going to be questions that he'll need to address moving forward. And in his pro debut, I don't like to get too bothered by like what happens in pro debuts for hitters, but with strikeout rates and like approaches at the plate in particular, I think those are maybe some of the areas that I'd be more willing to react a bit more to. And he did have a 38.5% strikeout rate compared to just a 4.6 walk rate with high A roam. So that's the question mark. But if he can rein in the approach a little bit, if he can make some mechanical adjustments that are going to allow him to make a little bit more contact in different areas of the zone, he's got a lot of power. He's got impressive bat speed. It's a lot of physicality. He can really drive the ball out to the pull side. And I think, I mean, I've talked about it enough that hopefully he's not underrated in this area, but he is a really good defender. He's an impressive athlete at shortstop. I expect him to stick there. He's got a great arm that can allow him to make these impact high-level plays deep in the hole. I think he moves around better as a defender than his pure foot speed might indicate. And so I'm pretty bullish on him defensively. And even if he winds up being a below-average pure hitter, with some power and those defensive skills. I think that's a really quality player. So that's kind of where I'm at with Lodise right now.
Yep. And then Tate Southisene, the first round pick. I know there were maybe some mixed reactions on Southisene. There was not with Baseball America, there was a notable talent evaluator who I believe tweeted, and I quote, "Yikes," when the Braves took Southisene in the first round. And it was like, oh man, all right. Sure, let's dig into that a little bit. But Southisene, not in the top 10, young kid, a project, obviously. There's so few, to tell you, there are so few, not even sure things, but probable things in the MLB draft. But Southisene, talented kid, but not in the Braves' top 10 at this point in time.
No, I think if he had a solid pro debut, he probably would have been in the top 10 for us, just based on where we had him ranked pre-draft, where the Braves took him. He was a little bit of a surprise for us in the first round where he went, in particular with some of the other high school shortstops who were still on the board at that stage. That said, we had Tate Southisene ranked in the 40s. So it's not like it was some huge reach. We had him ranked, I think, within 3 spots of Briggs McKenzie. And the way the Braves paid all these players, it really makes a lot of sense. Like, Briggs got a little bit more money. The Braves have used this strategy before, underslotting their first round pick, putting some more money to players later. The order of these picks confused me on draft day, but once you see the signing bonuses, like the collection of talent they got, I think makes sense. That said, Tate Southisene had perhaps the most disappointing pro debut of any 2025 draftee. If you look at expected weighted on base average, which if you're not aware of what that set is, it's taking in a lot of the batted ball quality, exit velocities, contact rate, batted ball angles. He was the worst hitter to debut among players who had at least 50 plate appearances. He just swung far, far, far too frequently. He expanded the zone. He chased. He swung and missed a ton. And he hit the ball on the ground ceaselessly. So it was not a good pro debut for Tate. However, he hit the ball incredibly hard for his age. The exit velocities he produced were on par with Ethan Holiday, who went 4th overall and ranked as the top overall prospect in the class for us, who also has his own swing and miss questions that he's going to need to answer. So it's kind of surprising to see that approach from Tate, because that was not his reputation at all. As an amateur, I think his ability to control the zone was quite solid as a high school hitter. So maybe it's a case for Tate where there's really just not a great level for high school hitters to go play official games these days. We talked about it with a lot of hitters who are not named Tate in other organizations in recent days. I don't think it's the greatest system for these young players, and that's why you see a lot of teams just drafting college. We've just kind of removed a lot of the spots for these players. But Tate is a good athlete. He's a good runner. He turned in double plus run times. He's got a chance to play shortstop, second base, center field, and play those positions well. He has a plus arm. There are some real tools here, but he's going to have to answer some approach questions. He's going to have to answer some contact questions. And it was just hard to justify him ranking above players like John Hill, who's also not even in the top 10 for us, given the contact skills and what John Hill has done at higher levels in the minors. And just given some of the upside that hitters like Tornes and Alex Lodise have in front of him. So he's not far off the top 10. He'll rank within the next few spots on our expanded list when that gets rolled out. But I think there are just some clear, kind of scary question marks we need to have him answer first.
There also has to be something as a high school draftee for the first time in his probably entire baseball playing life that he struggles on a baseball field. Like, I don't know what he was doing. He was 6 years old, but he was probably the most talented, capable kid on the Little League field and all through middle school and high school. You know, you see it in all sports. It's not just baseball, but for the first time, he is not the biggest, fastest, best, most talented player on the field. There's probably some kind, and then to aggressively push him into real baseball games, as you said, at a level that was probably a little above his head at that point. You know, it certainly was not a great showing. We're not going to lie. Maybe if he carried a 900 OPS, then maybe he would have been a top 50 prospect. I don't know. But obviously, plenty of time for Southisene. We will have our eyes on him next season. And then the last recent draftee I wanted to ask you about, Carlos, actually from the 2024 draft, is Luke Sinnard. Luke, 3rd round pick. He is gigantic. He is 6'8", and he is somebody who has flown up Braves prospect boards. I'm guessing most people maybe haven't even heard of Luke before. He pitched well in the Arizona Fall League as well. in the last couple of months. So tell folks about Sinnard, why he's risen so quickly, and what makes him he's number 9 on the Baseball America top 10 list.
Yeah, we got a pair of 6'8" behemoths back to back at 8 and 9 between Sinnard and Garrett Bauman at the back of this top 10. And really for Sinnard being here and rising up boards is just being healthy. He missed his entire 2024 draft year at Indiana with Tommy John surgery. And entering that year, there were expectations, really high expectations for Sinnard. He was an impressive arm talent. If he was healthy, it wouldn't have shocked me at all. If he was a top 50 sort of player, top 2 rounds type, those were the kind of the expectations for him. Had he been healthy, the Braves, along with the Dodgers, I think have been one of the more aggressive teams in targeting players with some injury question marks. It's panned out for them. Spencer Strider, Spencer Schwellenbach. These are guys who had injury questions or came off significant surgeries before the Braves even acquired them. They're like, okay, we like the arm talent. They're going to get back healthy. All pitchers get hurt. Like, they've just been fine acquiring those players, and it's paid off for them. Sinnard could be the next guy up. I mean, I think his secondaries are really advanced. We have both the slider and the splitter for him as above average pitches. Those were really impressive swing and miss offerings for him at low A and high A. He had a 28.3% strikeout rate across those two levels, pitched really well in the AFL after the season as well. I think there's even a bit more strikeout upside for Sinnard, because if you talk to coaches about like his approach, he really does not like giving away strikes. Even when he's in pitcher's counts and is maybe in like a put away situation where he could use this really good slider, this really good splitter to expand the zone and elicit a chase, it feels like he really wants to attack the zone still. He has the ability to get hitters chasing out of the zone with his secondaries. So I think as he moves up against better competition, he'll still continue to strike out batters at a pretty good rate. The fastball with him does not look like maybe an elite pitch. It's solid velocity for a right-handed pitcher, 93, 94, touches 97. It's a little bit of a steeper angle, and so he's working on both a 4-seam and a 2-seam to sort of complement the release and give hitters something to think about with the fastball. But he also has pretty good control. Right now, I think for him moving forward, it's just about getting back on track in terms of at a level that's a little bit more age appropriate for him. He was a little bit more advanced than the level he was pitching at, but that makes sense with him coming off injury. So he's certainly one of the more significant up arrow prospects in the system, and pretty deep pitch mix with good control, good size. See what we can get with him.
Sounds like somebody who could maybe even have his name called late summer if the Braves are just, I mean, it seems like every year it's like, oh man, who's going to throw some innings for us on Wednesday and the third week in August. So a name to keep on for sure. All right, we're going to do another quick break to hear a word from our partners. But when we come back, we're going to ask Carlos about the 2026 MLB Draft, which, I mean, the draft is always of high importance, but I think especially for the Braves, next summer's draft is of the highest importance. We'll be right back after a word from our partners.
If you are still carrying a clunky leather brick that can be mistaken for an old school wallet, may I introduce you to what Eric Kratz is getting himself for the holidays.
I mean, this is the greatest wallet that I've ever seen in my life. Your credit cards fit in here. It's adjustable, lifetime guaranteed. Like like this is a must-have for the holidays. Absolute must-have.
Ridge Olive Matte. That is the design that Kratz has right now, and you can get a hold of that. There's over 50 plus colors and styles to choose from over at Ridge. You can even get a wallet that features every NFL, MLB, or college team. And for a limited time, Ridge is having their huge Black Friday sale. Head to ridge.com/foul to get up to 47% off your order. This is by far the biggest discount they've given all year. That's ridge.com/foul for up to 47% off your order during their biggest sale of the year. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about Ridge. Tell them Foul Territory sent you.
We are back on the Hammer Territory podcast. I am joined today by Carlos Collazo of Baseball America. Carlos, you cover the draft better than almost anyone. You're like number one in my power rankings for draft coverage. You've been on MLB Network, I believe, talking about the draft as well, which is awesome to see you on there. You have done some really cool things in the industry. Of course, the Braves, not a good season, but when you have a bad season, it means that you have a good chance to pick at the top or near the top of the draft. I believe, unless it's changed, I believe we will know the Braves' official draft position in about 3 weeks at the GM meetings, or I'm sorry, at the winter meetings.
Right.
It gets drawn. The lottery gets drawn. The Braves have the 6th best odds of number 1 pick, although it is only like 4.5%, which is not great, but we will see. That all being said, Carlos, we have a full college season ahead of us. We have a full high school prep season ahead of us. But big picture, what does this upcoming draft class look like?
The upcoming draft class looks like Rock Chalowski and then of a lot of other players fighting for number 2. So the fact that the Braves are in consideration and have a chance at the number 1 pick this year is awesome. They really did themselves a disservice by going 7-3 down the stretch. I think they were like top 5 odds for a little bit there. And I think there are a couple teams you can kind of point to and say, if they managed to win the draft lottery and got the first overall pick, Rock Chalowski, it would be such a plug and play option for anyone, but like, especially for a team like Atlanta, who has a clear major league hole at shortstop, doesn't have any obvious internal replacements that are near ready. Like there are some guys you can point to, Lodise, John Hill, Tate Southisene, who maybe in a few years could be that player, but man, that would be such a great player to fill that hole, and a player who could move really quickly. But I think that the 2026 class beyond Chalowski is quite deep on the high school side. There are a lot of high school shortstops. Again, last year we had a really talented high school shortstop class. This high school pitching class is really impressive as well. So if the Braves want to go back to that, they'll have an opportunity. I'm guessing with them picking inside the top 10, likely picking inside the top 10, they're going to be some different demographic options that'll be more tantalizing. Like we don't currently have a high school pitcher right now who's a consensus top 10 overall talent. There's some college hitters at the top of the board. It seems like a pretty solid class. There are questions that the college hitters not named Rock Chalowski will need to answer for themselves this spring. There are a lot of hitters who need to address hit tool concerns. But I think it is, at this point, there's no reason for me to think it's any worse than last year's class. Most people think it's better. There's a lot of upside in the high school hitting group. So I think it's a good draft class. And this will be the first time the Braves are picking top 10, I think, since the 2019 draft when they took Shea Langoliers. So really a chance for them. We'll see what happens with the lottery to add an impact talent.
Yeah, it's funny. You almost hope this is like a rare opportunity for the Braves. Mm-hmm. We don't want these picks anymore. We want the Braves to be at pick 30 or whatever it would be in 18 months. I am curious to get your take without knowing who's going to be there, what pick they're going to have. But if the Braves do not sign a qualifying offer free agent, they also landed the additional first-round pick because Drake Baldwin won Rookie of the Year with the PPI incentive program. So, you would know better than me, but for the teams who have received this incentive pick, like Seattle did last year, I think Baltimore won it as well. It's a good chunk of change, maybe $3.5 million. The Braves could, if they have this pick and they don't give it away, they could throw that $3 million into, spread it out towards rounds 2 and 3 and 4 and target a Briggs McKenzie type. They could also try to go all out and add like 2 super expensive talents with pick whatever in the top 10 and then another pick and then maybe punt and save some money on rounds 2, 3, 4, and 5. Like there's so many different avenues the Braves could go, especially if they keep these 2 picks in the top 30. That's going to be fascinating for me to see.
Yeah, for people who are maybe not as locked into the draft as you are, Scott, and I think the Braves fans in general are pretty locked in on prospects to an impressive degree, but the bonus pool money that comes with that pick is as important as the pick itself, like just the leverage it gives you when you're trying to target players that maybe are slipping a few places. Like you see what the Rockies did with Ethan Holiday. They got the most expensive player in the draft, the best player on our board at number 4, in part because they're willing to spend more money there. Some teams take different strategies. They want to undercut their players earlier and take more of a portfolio approach, which is, I'd say, what we've seen the Braves do more often. But yeah, you mentioned some of these PPI picks. The Royals this past year at 28th overall, they signed Josh Hammond, who is a North Carolina high school shortstop who signed for just under $3.2 million at 28. Like that's the sort of money you can throw around with an extra pick. The D-backs a year ago took Ryan Waldschmidt with their PPI pick that came from Corbin Carroll. He's now the top ranked prospect in their system, a really impressive offensive player who's going to be on the top 100. So this is the kind of impact that you can get here. when you've got these extra picks, I just think it allows for more creativity, allows for you to be more aggressive. It allows for you to react in a more impactful way to what happens on draft day, because there are always players that you don't expect to slide, who will start sliding for whatever reason, whether it's big asks for signing bonus, whether it's makeup concerns, whether it's injury concerns. And if you want to be aggressive and you have a lot of money to throw around in the draft, it just gives you a little bit more ability to do that. So I do think it is kind of an interesting year for teams like Atlanta, teams like Baltimore, who have competitive cores but have a chance to be picking in the top 6-7 picks. So it's a good draft class, and I think the Braves are going to have some ammunition to have some fun with it.
Yeah. Let's hope, and maybe the lottery balls will fall our way. I mean, just from like an envy standpoint, I can already hear like Mets fans, bitching about, the Braves, they have one bad year and
Right.
they get a number 1 pick or a number 2 pick or whatever it would be. I mean, that would be pretty great.
I don't know off the top of my head when the last time the Braves have picked number 1 in their organization's history is. I'll try and pull that up real quick, but I can't off the top of my head. I don't know if you remember that, but
I mean,
is it Chipper 1990?
I was going to say it almost has to be Chipper, right? I mean, they've been so good since then, more or less. I mean, they picked, I think Ian Anderson went 3rd in the 16 or 17 draft.
Yep. I think it is just Chipper.
Yeah. I mean,
or at least most recent.
Yeah. Hey, let's go let's get this number 1 pick, and then we can go another 35 years without being at this
beautiful
high of the draft.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go. Speak it into existence. And again, we should know, I think the winter meetings are around like December 9th through the 11th or something like that this year. So who knows? Maybe if the Braves do draw that number 1 pick, we'll have Carlos on the show again. And of course, as we get closer to the draft in July, we will have full-time draft coverage, maybe a little more draft coverage. We always admit, the hosts of this show always admit, we are not prospect experts. We are not draft experts. So we call in people like Carlos to help us out, because he, of course, is one of those experts. Well, Carlos, thank you again for taking the time to come on the show. Really appreciate your insight and all the work that Baseball America does. You all just do such a good job of covering not just the Braves, but the entire major league and minor league system. We appreciate you, and hopefully you have some time as this holiday season is around us to step away for a little bit, relax, recharge the batteries, because I'm sure it just gets right back up and going as soon as high school and college ball gets going. And is it late January at this point, February? I mean, I feel like it moves up earlier and earlier every year.
Yeah, we get some junior college that starts in January, and then mid-February, all the D1 teams are going. So right now for us, we're in prospect handbook mode. So if you guys are interested in the prospect handbook, we are in full editorial mode for that beast. And yeah, we just appreciate the support. I mean, everyone at the Hammer Territory family, I feel like you guys are such BA supporters. So we really appreciate that. We appreciate everyone who subscribes and takes the time to read, because we couldn't do it without you. So appreciate the kind words. Thank you for the support, and happy to come on and talk prospects and Brave stuff anytime.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we will put a link to Baseball America in both the YouTube show notes and the audio podcast notes if you want to check them out and support Baseball America and their really talented team of writers. One more time, a big thank you to Carlos for coming on the show. We will be back soon with more Braves news, hopefully some more moves on the horizon. And until then, we will see everybody next time.